Hey everyone, today I wanted to make a video of what I read in the month of April. I think one or two of these may have actually been March and or I finished early May, but a lot of them need to be returned to the library, so they are going in this video. So I have some children's and like middle grade books that I read for potential use in our homeschool. And then a lot of these were books that I read to educate myself so that I can better educate my children. So a lot of them are that. The first one I'm going to show you is this one called How to Homeschool the Kids You Have. This is one I actually read in March, I'm pretty sure. And I borrowed it from the library and I ended up buying a copy because I liked to go back through and I don't know, I love this book so much. I wish that this book had been around when I first started homeschooling because I feel like it would have helped guide me better than maybe a lot of the YouTube videos that I was watching at the time. So this is How to Homeschool the Kids You Have, Advice from the Kitchen Table. And it's 3 different authors, Courtney Ostaff, Jen Naughton, and Drew Campbell. And I like that there's different voices in here, and the way it's written, it'll say Courtney thinks this and Drew thinks this. I like that you get the multiple viewpoints on the same topic in, the same section. So there's a lot in here that I didn't need, being that this is like our 5th year homeschooling, but I still am glad that it was included. The first chapter is about defining your educational goals, choosing your approach, and then what to teach and when, which I thought was helpful. Now, I will say that these authors tend to come from take a classical approach to homeschooling. So if you are not a classical homeschooler, that doesn't mean that this book won't be helpful to you, but it may make some of the information maybe not as relevant to you, but I don't consider us to be classical homeschoolers, and I still found a lot of helpful things in here. One of the things I noticed when I first started reading this is how frequently the information that they shared was cited somewhere. Let me get to one. Like, they cite a lot of their sources, and that's really helpful. So many of the homeschool books I read, it tends to be more opinion, and I like that when they state something, they're letting me know that this was data from a study or, something like that. I like that I could go read more. So I really appreciated that. I also really liked, they talk a lot about how we learn. And let me see, the chapter that I probably go back to the most, well, the how we learn, and then there's one on like science and history. There's one on composition, vocabulary, grammar, and literature. Just all really great information. Math. What I think the thing that I loved the most about this was there were so many things that I read that I felt validated because I was already doing them, but I was maybe not confident. I didn't have confidence in how or why we were doing them. So there's some good notes on social studies. It talks about science and kind of the issues with a lot of homeschool science curriculum. And there's even a section on literature-based programs and some things you really maybe should keep in mind if you are doing a literature-based curriculum. And anyway, there's just so much good information in here. I highly recommend this if you are a secular homeschooler, especially. I think you would appreciate this because there's not a lot of good books out there on it. So highly recommend that. Okay. And also they have a podcast, although I think now their podcast is behind a paywall, I'm pretty sure. But from listening to their podcast, I think possibly that's where I heard about these other 2 books. Now, I had already borrowed a book from Barbara Oakley from the library. I think last year because I was looking at maybe using it with my daughter, which I am going to use with her this year. I'll link that video where I talk about my curriculum picks for my upcoming 7th grader, because one of her books we're going to use for her. But anyway, I think that the authors of the How to Homeschool the Kids You Have maybe mentioned her again, and that prompted me to get these 2 books from the library. And what's funny is these both came in at the same time. This one's called A Mind for Numbers, How to Excel at Math and Science, Even If You Flunked Algebra, and Uncommon Sense Teaching, Practical Insights into Brain Science to Help Students Learn. They both came in at the same time, and I remember sitting in the parking lot at the library, and I was like, oh, they both look so good. Which one should I read? And I decided to pick this one up, and I just sat in the parking lot and I started reading it. And instantly I was like, I love this book so much. Like, already I'm seeing so much helpful information. I think my biggest takeaway from this particular book was about the importance of focus mode and diffuse mode in your brain when you are working on things. And I think that, yeah, here it talks about shifting between the focused and diffuse modes, and how sometimes, like, say in math, if you're so focused in on finding the answer, sometimes the technique you've been taught, you're so focused in, your brain can't see any other solutions to it because you're so focused. And it just talks about the importance of diffuse mode. There's a lot else in here, but that was like my biggest takeaway from this one. And then this one probably was more applicable to the classroom and homeschooling. And I liked this one probably a little bit better. I don't know. I liked them both, but if I could only read one, probably it would be this one. And my biggest takeaway from this one, I think I marked it here. This talks a lot about working memory versus long-term memory, and how few things your working memory can hold in it. And it talked about the different types of memory, like the way we remember. There's declarative memory and procedural memory, and how when both of those systems can learn the same concept, or when 2 different memory systems, can learn the same concept in 2 different ways, what a richer way for students to understand material. That, and then it really talked about, somewhere it said, like, the best way to retain information is to practice retrieval practice. And I thought that was really a good information as well. So again, I highly recommend this. I feel like it's really important, if we're homeschooling our kids, that we are making sure we're working hard to make sure we are the best teachers for them that we can be. Many of us do not have teaching degrees. And so educating ourselves on things like this, I think, are really very important. So I recommend both of those. Another book I read was called Smart Foods for ADHD and Brain Health. I believe this was a UK publisher. I enjoyed it. I don't think there was anything like groundbreaking in it, but I did find it interesting. I thought there were a lot of little interesting tidbits in here. I liked, where is it? Other nutrients that help you cope with ADHD. We have a lot of ADHD in our family, so there was just a lot of good information in here. And then the last third of the book is just different recipes and things. So I liked that one as well. All right, Social Justice Parenting. This one was recommended by Michelle G. I will link either her channel or the specific video below if I can find it. And then I also saw it somewhere else. I don't remember, but I decided to give it a try. I really liked it. It basically it's written by a mother of 5 kids, and she just offers a lot of strategies for how to have conversations with your kids, age-appropriate conversations, on topics like related to racism or gender bias, economic disparities, homophobia, things like that. How to initiate these conversations, how to continue to have the conversations, and basically approach parenthood as a form of activism. And I liked that. One thing I really appreciated is that many times throughout the book, there were basically like these times for reflecting. And if you do like journal writing, you could take some time and write about it. But for me, it was like a time to like pause and really let sink in what I had read. So I recommend this one as well. All right, my last nonfiction is one, I'm actually not quite finished with it yet. It's called America Redo, I think. Visual Stories from Our Dynamic History. I love this book so much. I put it on my wish list so that maybe someone will buy it for me for my birthday. But basically this says it explores the themes that create our shared sense of American identity, and interrogates the myths that we've been telling ourselves for centuries. With iconic American catchphrases as chapter titles, these 21 visual stories illuminate the astonishing, unexpected, sometimes darker sides of history that reverberate in our society to this very day. From the role of celebrity in immigration policy, to the influence of one small group of white women on education, to the effects of progress on housing and the environment, to the inspiring force of collective actions and mutual aid across decades among diverse groups. So it's fully illustrated. I think the illustrations are amazing. I love them so much. I love this style. And there's really, really good hard truth history in here that I think is awesome. And I love this so much. I read the first chapter and I loved it so much I read it out loud to my family. And then my daughter, who just turned 12, said, "Mom, can I read that book when you're done?" Now, I don't think this is necessarily a book for children, but I think tweens and teens potentially. Anyway, I read, and then the next chapter I started to read, and I was like, oh my gosh, this one's good too. And I read that one out loud to my husband. And I love this book so much. This will be one that we add to our shelf. And hopefully that happens before I have to take this one back to the library. But if you really like kind of decolonizing history and unwhitewashing history, this would be a really good book for you. Okay, my last three that I have are children's novels that I read. The first one I've talked about in a previous video. It's called Mascot. I read this with my out loud to my kids. We all really enjoyed it. I will have them read it again probably in a couple years when they're maybe in like 8th grade. I'll probably have them each read it again on their own. But it approaches the idea of a mascot maybe being a racist. And this is a topic that we discuss a lot because we live near Cleveland and we had the Cleveland Indians, who have since changed their name to the Cleveland Guardians. And there's been thoughts and feelings in our family about that. And so this was a really important book for us to read. It follows a group of, I believe they're 6th or 7th grade. They're middle school. And I think there were 6 kids. And it follows them through this process in their school of some kids speaking out about feeling that their mascot was racist and their thoughts on it. You see all sides. All of these kids come from different places, and their thoughts on this mascot and its effect on their school and their community. And what I love about it is at the end, they don't all have the same opinion by the end. They don't all come around and say, oh, this is racist, we should get rid of it. But each of the characters grew in some way. And I thought that was really important to see. So highly recommend this one as well. Next is this one called Susie B. Won't Back Down by Margaret Finnegan. I really like this book. Now, I will say, I didn't love the character in this book. I felt like she was very, the way it was written, I think kids would relate to it. It was very much written in a child's voice. This particular child was very kind of in your face, like very, I don't know, very almost obnoxious is what I thought about her when I was reading it. But what I really loved about this and what drew me to it is, so basically she's running, I think, for class president, And she has a favorite historical figure, and they're doing a project where they each have to pick their favorite historical heroes. And hers is Susan B. Anthony. And in the process, she finds out some information about Susan B. Anthony that is not glowing, that is not hero worthy in her mind. And she really struggles with that idea of, here's this person that did all these great things, and I think they're amazing, but now I found out they did something not amazing, and how do I handle that? And does that mean I can't look up to this person anymore? And it was just really well done. It really talks about how people are a paradox, and there's a lot of really good conversation starters in here. This is something that I want to bring back and do maybe closer to election time this year with my kids. They haven't read it yet. And I did find, I think on the Scholastic, is this Scholastic? Simon & Schuster website, they had a little packet that has a discussion guide, a whole lot of discussion questions, activities for students, this whole making connections page, perplexing paradoxes. So lots of good activities that we can do with the book when I do it with my kids. So I recommend that one as well. The last one I did just finish last night. Again, I loved it so much. It's called The Night War by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley. And what's funny is when this book came into the library for me, I was like, why did I put this on hold? Like, I don't remember. Did I have a purpose for this? I don't know if I read a review on it. I don't know if I saw an ad on Facebook. It's historical fiction. It's a children's novel, or maybe middle grade, which are all things I like, but I had no memory of why did I put this on hold. So I thought, well, let me start reading it and maybe it'll come back to me. It never came back to me. I think I must have just read a review on it. But it takes place in 1942. During World War II. The main character is Miriam. She's 12, and her family moved. She's Jewish, and her family moved from Germany to France to be safer. And so the story takes place in France, and her parents get taken off to a work camp, and she ends up in a Catholic boarding school, like a Catholic boarding school. A nun sees her about to be taken away and kind of rescues her. She has to change her name to Marie. And so she's in this area of France where, what is it? The Chateau de Chenonceau, I think is how you say it. Chenonceau, Chateau de Chenonceau, the castle that kind of is like a bridge over a river in France. Anyway, it's interesting. I really like it because there's a lot of talk about Catholicism and the Jewish faith and the differences and how they pray. And there's lots of conversations between the girls in this boarding school who don't know she's Jewish, but she has to pretend to be Catholic, so she has rosary beads and things like that. There's a lot of talk about religion, which I actually appreciated. And the thing that I think I loved most about this book, there is kind of a mystical thing that happens partway through, which I normally don't like. And I was almost like, I'm just not even going to finish it. But I'm so glad I did, because I still loved it. But there's this tie in here between Catherine de Medici and, what was the other one's name in history? Diane de something with a P. And it really showed these parallels between what was happening with Hitler and Nazis, compared it to Catherine de Medici and kind of what happened when she took over, and kind of the conflict between, I think, Catholics and Protestants, right? I can't remember. And then paralleled that to current times. I just thought it was amazing. I loved it so much. Unlike most World War II fiction, it had a happy ending, and I appreciated that as well. So I think she has 2 or 3 other books that I have not read, so I will probably go check those out now as well. But highly recommend this one. I'll probably have my daughter read this one. I love that it tied into history we just did this year, and I don't think that's why I put it on hold, but I love that it had that tie-in. So that is everything that I read in the month of April, maybe a little March and May. If you have any questions, let me know down below. Let me know what you're reading. I'd love some more recommendations.